Hi everyone, this is Daniel Scranton, and I decided at the very last moment tonight to make the bonus video about channeling. Because this is November of 2019, and that means it's at some point in this month, I don't know exactly when it happened, but at some point this month, will be the 9-year anniversary of me beginning with channeling the very first words I spoke from the creators, which were, "We are here for you." I've learned quite a bit about channeling in the 9 years since I started doing it. I've seen people that I channeled for years become channels and do very well with their work, and Ina Lucas is one of those people. She used to come to my events. We had these little events in San Diego County. They were almost always in San Diego County somewhere, like Carlsbad, Encinitas, that area. Sometimes right in San Diego. And there were like 10 to 13 people who would come, and that was it. And in the early days of my channeling, so Ina, I remember meeting her the first time because I had just gotten back from an Abraham cruise, and I had met an Ema on that cruise. And I also met a woman that I would later marry. But I remember meeting Ina right after having bonded with this other woman named Ema on the cruise. And Ina went on to channel herself and channels the alchemists and is doing her own thing and doing it really well. So I've worked with her several times. She's great. So in the beginning of channeling for me, I could not or didn't want to, but I definitely didn't channel anything other than answers to questions. So I would channel for people over the phone and on Skype, and I would do it for free at first because I just wanted to practice. And then I would do these group events, and I would just put out a donation jar. And I wouldn't do any intro at the events. You know, usually when people come to me for a channeled reading, they do have questions. Occasionally, people will just say, "Hey, just channel for me for 40 minutes or an hour," and it's hard. It is hard to channel without a question. So I didn't do it for a long time. I think I was scared. I was scared at the beginning of a lot of things. I was definitely scared that it wasn't real, it was all just made up. All the things that when you first start channeling, you will think, if you haven't yet channeled, you will think those things. Sorry, but it's rare, I'd say, for people to not do that. Jane Roberts, who channeled Seth, she thought she might be going crazy, but that's a different experience than thinking, "Oh, I really want to channel," and then you do it, and you're like, "Well, I really wanted to channel, so maybe I'm just saying these things." So that was, I think I mentioned in another video, but I'll say it again. I didn't really take it seriously as a career, possibility even, for the first couple years. Didn't need to, had an online business, and then got a little inheritance and was living off of that and not really putting much energy and effort into my channeling. It took me 1.5 years approximately to get the name The Creators. I had to channel that because when I asked them, what do I call you? What's your name? They literally said, pick a friggin'. And they said it over and over again. Pick a friggin', pick a friggin', pick a friggin'. So I chose a name that someone else had given them, but didn't really fit. They were called Grandpa for like 1.5 years. And then I eventually got the name The Creators, and it felt right. I got synchronicity confirmation of it. Still feels right. Still feels like the right name. In case you didn't realize this, Abraham is a name that Esther chose, and Bashar is a name that Daryl chose. So the names are not that important sometimes. Sometimes you're channeling a Pleiadian from the 6th dimension, and that is going to be important for whatever reason. But with some of these non-physical, I thought maybe I heard Kalyandra coming in. Some of these non-physical groups, not that important. But the names always fit. So it turns out the creators are universal architects. Helped construct this universe and galaxies and systems and all that stuff. Not with their hands, not with their non-physical hands, but with, how we create with our focus and intention and vibration. So 6 months into my channeling is when I started channeling light language and didn't know what it was. Didn't know what to call it. Didn't know that it had a name. I had heard of speaking in tongues because I grew up Christian, but it wasn't big in the Catholic Church, speaking in tongues. You heard about things like stigmata too, but you don't expect to start bleeding in the center of your hands. So I didn't know what that was, and it took me like 6-7 months before I found out that there's a name for this. It's called light language. So that was pretty interesting. And then I kind of didn't do much with light language from 2011 till just a few years ago when it started coming up more. Started coming up more in me, and it just seemed like maybe this is something people would be interested in me sharing. And then one of my most popular videos on my channel, oh, by the way, my YouTube channel passed 2 million views. Probably yesterday too. So that's exciting. So 9 years of channeling, 2 million views on YouTube. I didn't really, it's only been 7 months that I've been doing these on-camera appearances. So for most of the time that I was making YouTube videos, I wasn't getting as much attention on YouTube for a couple of reasons. I didn't understand about tagging. And because people are more likely to watch a video. I don't know if you're that way. I'm that way. When I'm on YouTube, I want to see something because I listen to podcasts all the time where you don't see anything. But it's, it's a visual medium, and I was just putting a picture up. Now, the next 2 million views will probably take like a year or two. So, getting so sidetracked here. So the light language happened 6 months in. The channeling of tones and overtones came like a year after that. So I'm channeling in English first, then light language, and then tones and overtones. And the creators were the first ones to come through with their overtones that probably sounded a little different at the time, But in case you've never heard me channel, the creators and their overtones, this is what it sounds like. This is what came out of me one day unexpectedly. I'm going into the channeling state for the creators. Yes. 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 That stopped suddenly because something came up in my throat. That happens sometimes. I took a little maca powder earlier, and sometimes that'll get caught in my throat. So 3 years of channeling the creators, and eventually those tones coming in. Those tones came in after, initially there was, the creators would say sing and ring and sing over and over and over. Those people who came to those early workshops remember when it would take me 10 minutes before I would get to the We Are Here For You, and before that it was sing and ring and sing, ring, sing, ring, sing, sing and ring, sing and ring and sing, ring and sing. Sing and ring and sing. So that's what got me to take voice lessons, and then eventually I discovered toning through the voice lessons, and then the toning somehow led to me channeling overtones. So I channel different overtones, not just the creator's one. So I can right now say, okay, I intend to channel some overtones that are not the creators. And in case you never watched my other video, the arm motions are not intentional. I'm not saying, hey, I should do this. This is something that just happens. And it's one of the reasons why I stuck with channeling, honestly, is because I thought, well, I'm not doing that. I know I'm not doing that. I know that's just something that's happening. So, and the light language and the tones as well. Like, I knew I wasn't a person who said, hey, I want to speak in light language. One of the podcasts I listened to, and I knew that I wasn't doing this on purpose. This is just something that happens very naturally to me as I channel. So one of the podcasts I listened to by a guy named Pete Holmes, and his podcast is called You Made It Weird, and he's a comedian. He had a show, a late night show after Conan, and he had 3 years on HBO with a show called Crashing, which, if you like stand-up comedy like I do, that's like a dream come true. A show about stand-up comedians and like how they live, and I love it. So Pete Holmes' show, he talks about his Christian roots a lot, and he was raised, I don't know what it's called, what his denomination or sect of Christianity is called, but apparently speaking in tongues is a thing, and people did it, and he said he was never able to do it. He thought if he could do it, then that would be like proof to him that he was good or something. You know, one of those things that we tell ourselves. So he never wanted to force it. He thought, well, maybe I could start to like fake it until I make it, sort of thing. Like maybe just pretending to speak in tongues would lead to it, but he didn't want to do it that way. And he was talking to this other guy on his podcast who was saying the same thing. So that did not happen for me because, first of all, I'll go back even further and say, I never thought I was going to be a channel. I was going to Esther Hicks's workshops thinking, I just want to ask questions. I just love being here. I love hanging out with people who talk the talk with me. And I love getting up there and asking Abraham questions. So no intention whatsoever of becoming a channel. What I did want, and piece of skin on my foot. I've been running barefoot in the yard on days when we don't get out into the forest. So I guess I should probably put shoes on. But it feels good to run barefoot on the grass. So I thought it would be great just to go to these Abraham workshops, but then I had the big moment that you'll see in another video called How I Woke Up and Started Channeling, which is right on the homepage of my YouTube channel. So there's no excuse for not seeing it. It's right there. Where I described that whole event and what happened and why. After that, I just wanted to keep feeling as good as I felt during that experience, which I also go into detail when I talk about E.T.s, because it was an E.T. experience. So anyway, I just wanted to feel that good. I was feeling bad a lot of times. I was feeling bad physically. I was feeling bad emotionally. I was in a marriage I didn't want to be in anymore, but didn't want to hurt my first wife. And so, yeah, it was a rough time. And then all of a sudden everything changed. And I started channeling energy. And I knew when I was channeling energy that I was probably going to channel in words at some point. But didn't happen immediately. So if it doesn't happen immediately for you, be patient with it. I know one of my clients started channeling recently after years and years and years of trying. So it is something that can take time before it happens. So after 3 years of channeling the creators, I had a friend who wanted to start channeling, and I said, hey, well maybe we can do like a channeling exchange thing where I'll ask you to channel for me, you ask me to channel for you. And so we did that a few times, and she said she wanted to talk to a fairy. So this was a way for me to also stretch my abilities, see if I could go beyond where I was. And so I was happy to try. And I had actually made contact with Ophelia in the forest at some point. I felt her, I channeled her, but this was the first time I was going to do it for a person. And then I channeled Ophelia the fairy, and my voice changes a lot. I don't have the deepest voice for a male, but it gets really, really high when I channel Ophelia and Kuan Yin and, oddly enough, Archangel Gabriel, which maybe I'll talk about later. But that started the expansion of my channeling to include beings other than the creators. So after Ophelia came for a while, I just said one day, okay, I'm open to channeling some new group. I didn't ask for any specifics about them. And the Hathors came through. And I only had heard of the Hathors. I had no knowledge of them, where they were from, what their story was. I just started channeling them. So that was they were the first three, and I think the fourth, almost positive, was Archangel Michael. And Archangel Michael came to me while I was at a workshop where Nora Harold was running it. It was like a retreat. And she brought Michael through, and Michael asked if anyone wanted to channel them who was in attendance, and I could feel Michael before I channeled them. I knew that it was going to happen. And the first time I channeled Michael, I just channeled light language. So I had been channeling light language for a while, but again, I wasn't really doing anything with it. So it was interesting. And then I had to practice after that, because being in that space and having Nora channel Michael, and it was the right environment to get it going. But then to get it going on my own, it took a little practice. So I was channeling those four beings and collectives for a while. And then I was living here in Hawaii when I first channeled the Archangel Gabriel. And that was surprising to me that it was in a woman's voice, the high-pitched feminine voice that I channel in sometimes came through with Gabriel, and I had to look it up after and say, okay, why is Gabriel coming through in a female voice? And some people in the New Age consider Gabriel to be female. So I thought that's interesting. I don't think that's the way the Christians look at it. So after that, who came after that? I wanted to channel some Pleiadians, and I wound up channeling these beings called the 8th dimensional Pleiadian spheres. There's like 1 or 2 videos that I made from them on YouTube on my channel. And then shortly after that, Corey Good, I became aware of Corey Good, and he's talking about the sphere beings, and I was like, I wasn't sure that was real. Channeling spheres. I was like, that's weird. But then I was like, okay, I want to channel some Pleiadians one night. And I sat down to do it, and the Zetas came through. The Zeta Reticulans, the Greys, the ones that are responsible for Bashar's race being, among us, and the Yael being among us now, amongst others, the hybrid children. They're the ones who have been hybridizing with human DNA and genetic material for decades. So I channeled them for a little while. That was weird. It was weird to be saying, I want to channel Pleiadians and get Zetas. That had never happened to me before. Then eventually I channeled the Pleiadian High Council of 7. That was intentional, and I channeled them. Kuan Yin, interestingly enough, came after I had like 4 Kuan Yin synchronicities in a row, where 2 people mentioned Kuan Yin, a client, and then someone who was helping me, like doing healing on me. And then I ordered a keychain on Amazon because it had crystals for each of the 7 chakras. And I'm dangling on the end was Kuan Yin, which I didn't know when I ordered it. And then I was telling my landlady about all the synchronicities with Kuan Yin. She's like, that's a Kuan Yin statue you have out in front of your hale or ohana. Forget, we have these weird words for things. It's like a guest house that I was renting. And I was like, no, I thought that was Buddha. I just assumed it was like Buddha on a kind of feminine day. Buddha when he was like really thin. Nope, it's Kuan Yin. So 4 Kuan Yin synchronicities, someone I had never heard of for most of my life. I just heard of her, and then I said, okay, I'm going to channel Kuan Yin. So I brought through Kuan Yin for a while and did the daily messages with Kuan Yin. And then I met my wife, who's Asian and who channeled Kuan Yin and still does. But that was really interesting because I sometimes feel like, like with Ophelia the fairy, I felt like an attraction to her as a fairy. And then Kuan Yin, I was like, I felt really attracted to her and her energy. And then boom, I manifested a Kuan Yin into my life. Who came after Kuan Yin? Oh, I skipped over the founders, I think, at some point. Founders came through. Yeah. Founders came through, I think, after Archangel Gabriel. And I had only heard of them through this woman named Lisa Royal Holt, who's an amazing channel. Again, just like the Hathors, only heard of them. Never even heard any channeling from them, and they came through me. So that was interesting. And they sound like an actor from a long time ago named Peter Lorre, not Chuck Lorre, and I don't know if there's any relationship there. Not Hugh Laurie, but his last name is spelled like Chuck Lorre, Lorre. And he was this little guy with these buggy eyes, and he always played like an Igor type character. And that's what they sound like when they come through me. I have no idea why. The Quaranthians. The Quaranthians came because I was like, hey, I want to channel some E.T.s. Just want to channel some E.T.s, and then all of a sudden the Quaranthians come, and they tell a story of how they came into our solar system and our galaxy from another galaxy through a wormhole, and they were just here kind of investigating, looking around. They were a little bit more advanced, but I think in the same dimension as us. And they're frog people. And I remember when I got that they were frog people, I was like, that's a little weird. But then next thing I know, I see another channel talking about how the Orion beings that she channels are frog people. So then I felt like, okay, that's legitimate then. Still questioning everything. And then eventually I knew about Arcturians for a long time. I'd heard of them. They sounded cool. They sounded like beings I'd want to channel, And so I did. I said, okay, I'm going to start channeling the Arcturian Council. Or no, I didn't say the Arcturian Council. They called themselves the Arcturian Council. I didn't know. All I thought was Arcturian, and that's how they come through. And I've been doing them for a long time. And the reason I continue doing them is because doing messages with them is because I feel like they go deeper than any of the other beings I've ever channeled for the daily messages, which I've been doing now for about 7.5 years, by the way. I only have record of the first one on my website in August of 2012. But on Facebook, if I go back, I think I've posted for like a couple months on Facebook before I start posting them on my site. Those original times when, again, I hadn't channeled unless there was a question for years, and then all of a sudden I said, okay, I want to do this now. I want to start doing it. And it was hard. At first it was like it'd take me an hour to channel a message that now takes 10 minutes. And it wouldn't even be as long as they are now. So yeah, so that was a big step for me, and I'm so glad I did it, obviously, because I needed to practice. I needed to feel like what I was doing was real, and as a result of consistently doing it, here I am with 2 million YouTube views, and you know, getting on more and more people's radar all the time, just because I keep doing this thing that I really love to do. I really love channeling these messages from the Arcturian Council for you guys. Oh, I also channeled Yeshua and Buddha at some point, and then somebody asked me if I would channel Saint Germain, and I said yes for a session. And somebody else said, "What about, will you channel Mary Magdalene?" I said yes. Will you channel Mother Mary? I said yes. So a lot of the beings I channel are because of requests. I channeled a Syrian council, they call themselves the High Council of Sirius, the other day for a client, because that's what he wanted. And so I said, okay. And I channeled a long-time client's guide for her, spirit guide, directly, which I'd never done that before. I did that the other day. So I've been stretching myself. And the thing about channeling is that I want to say about it after 9 years is, first of all, a channel can have an off day, just like Michael Jordan had off days, just like Babe Ruth had off days. Yo-Yo Ma probably feels like he has off days sometimes. Anyone can have an off day. I think that there's a kind of like feeling about channeling. Oh, it's 11:11 here. That it's like papal infallibility, that concept of papal infallibility. And there isn't that. Unfortunately, you know, we're human beings and we're human vessels, and it's not an exact science, and you know, that part of me that doubted it early on and for years really wanted it to be an exact science. You know, you're either doing it or you're not. But the truth is that all of us who channel are doing the best we can. And we get better with time, with practice. So I mean, and then you hear about others who lose it. I'm not going to name names, but someone who was channeling a long time ago and still around. I've heard from people that say that they think this person has lost their channeling ability. It's not anyone I've ever mentioned, so if you're guessing, it's not anyone I've ever mentioned on any of these videos. But I think that can happen too. I think that it went to this person's head a little bit, and it became a little bit too much about the fame and fortune, which is not why you want to get into anything. You want to get into anything because you love doing it, and then if that comes later on, you know, then you have to deal with that. But anyway, it's getting late, and I could talk about channeling for a long time, and maybe I will in another video, but I'm going to go so that I get up at a reasonable hour tomorrow on my day off to spend with my family. All right, so thank you, as always, for watching me talk about my stories here. I appreciate you all for being here. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And please check the links that I'm going to put in the description, because I've got some cool stuff happening, including a Making Contact with Extraterrestrials course that starts on Monday. So only a couple days left to sign up for that. Again, thank you all and blessings to you. Hope you're having a great weekend. I'll see you tomorrow night.
Please like, subscribe, share, and comment on this video.